Gig workers in the Philippines are lacking legal protection, prompting calls for policies that ensure fair pay and transparent contracts. To delve deeper into this issue, we are joined by Queen Sel Oren from the Philippines Institute for Development Studies and Dr. Cheryl Ruth Soriano and attorney J.V. Gamboa from Fair Work Philippines. What changes in labor policies are necessary to better support gig workers?
I guess I'll begin with identifying some of the major issues or concerns we have in relation to the lack of decent work standards that's anchored in our fair work principles. That's first, fair pay, which is the idea that regardless of worker classifications, our workers getting guaranteed some sense of a decent income. Then the second is whether the workers, given the nature of their work, are there policies to protect them from specific task kinds of risks? And then the third one looks at fair contracts and whether these workers are able to get some kind of a transparent, clear, and accessible contract with the platforms. The fourth is fair management, where we look at whether workers have a clear and documented way by which the decisions around their tenure, their suspension, the activations are made, and whether the workers can appeal them. And I guess the last is representation and whether workers need channels to collectively voice concerns or negotiate these terms. And I guess what we found is that there's a lot of variability in the way different platforms enact these, and therefore a lack of standards. And our policy recommendations in Fair Work, which Attorney Gamboa can speak a little bit more, pertain to how platforms could better facilitate the provision of policies and conditions of work that will attend to these fairness principles.
First is on fair pay. So we have seen the fees or costs related to accessing online payment systems for our workers. So our proposal is for the platforms to not pass on the cost of accessing these e-payment platforms to the workers. Second is on fair conditions. We want the platforms to be able to provide mandatory training to hopefully safeguard and inform the workers, as well as provide personal protective equipment such as helmet or raincoats for free to the workers. And third, in terms of fair contracts, we want to highlight that there's a big space for improvement in terms of how contracts are made between the platforms and the workers. So we propose that there should be a standard contract that must be written or in writing, and this contract must be in a language understood by the workers, which is not yet happening right now across platforms in the Philippines.
At least three labor policy challenges that needs to be addressed is first to adjust the mechanisms for social protection programs and taxation. This is due to the precarious source of income of online workers and the ambiguous employment status, so that we can acknowledge the existence of this new and emerging work, including their nature and specific needs. Also, they have to be supported, especially in moving up to high value adding work, with the use of the recently passed Philippine Digital Workforce Competitiveness Act. And lastly, they need help in terms of improving their working conditions by extending basic rights to online workers, such as just compensation, written contracts, and safe working place, as well as dispute resolution.
What are the major challenges in creating these policies?
The challenge really is whether the courts will determine that there's an employment relationship between the gig workers and the platforms. So in that way, we are kind of waiting for a definite ruling from the courts. On the policy side, in terms of legislation, we are seeing proposals filed in Congress, whether it's in the House or in the Senate, but we have yet to see the momentum. No? And this is also what we're trying to to push in fair work, to gain momentum.
I guess this is also why in Fair Work, I guess we propose that regardless of worker classification, right, these standards of fairness need to be applied across all platforms and across gig workers. But I guess the second challenge is that I guess normally, right, fair pay or fair conditions for workers sometimes kind of framed as stifling innovation, and also sometimes framed in terms of, oh, that will imply higher costs for customers or for clients of these platforms, right? So I guess what we're saying in Fair Work is that, well, we probably need to think about sustainability and how we define sustainability in a deeper sense, such that sustainability is defined such that it balances innovation, customer needs, and of course the welfare of workers. That a sustainable business, of course, we recognize that businesses need to become sustainable, but at the same time should not forget the welfare of the workers that are the backbone of these platforms operations. And so we say that when these kinds of startups or these kinds of platforms are established, they need to put the conditions of workers as well at the heart of the business model. And I guess that's the next one that's challenging is really also the diversity of work and the multi-sectoral conversations that it requires. And that kind of creates ambiguities because different kinds of working conditions will also compel, of course, nuanced policies. Apart from the fact that some of these platforms are also located globally, right? So it creates some kind of a gray area in terms of regulation.
Perhaps the bigger issue is maintaining their active membership. Because of the precarious nature of these workers, sometimes they might have issues with regards to maintaining, or they struggle with regular contributions, or maybe a lack of motivation to contribute to their social protection. And we also have challenges in identifying trainings that is needed for these online workers, especially in anticipating future skills and competing with other countries. If I may add, enforcing the Philippine laws on platforms and clients that are not based in the Philippines can be quite challenging. And if the Filipino workers become too demanding, uh, other nations like India and Pakistan are ready to offer competitive alternatives. So it's quite competitive to work in the digital or the gig economy.
How would a portable benefits system work for gig workers?
One of our research fellows in the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, Dr. Bayudan Dakoy, recommends that a social protection system for all workers should be universal, equal, and flexible. This include features such as portability, agility, and integration with related services. And this system should also be facilitated by technology. It means that the program should allow contributions based on the ability of the workers in terms of paying their contribution, as well as ensuring that the system adapts to various arrangements, because these online workers can have more than one work, or they can move to other forms of online work. So they should be accommodated.
Our gig workers are considered or classified as self-employed, and the main implication of this is that the workers have to pay in full the contributions from their own pockets. Comparing this from a usual employment setup, the company makes a contribution, a mandatory contribution as well. So in this case, the workers, just by looking at the way contributions are made, are already at a disadvantage. So for us, it is important that while this is the current standing or system, that the companies make an internal arrangement or internal policy that would be able to help the workers be aware of these benefits. So if companies or platforms are able to establish already these internal mechanisms, then we should already move forward the discussion into the question of whether the companies should be legally obligated to contribute to this social protection systems for their workers.
Thank you once again for joining us today, Queen Cell. Cheryl, and JV.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, our guests were Queen Cell Oren, Research Specialist at the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, Attorney JV Gamboa, Legal Consultant at Fair Work Philippines, and Dr. Cheryl Ruth R. Soriano, Principal Investigator for Fair Work Philippines. For more news, please visit govmedia.com.